My life's worst nightmare. I was just an innocent girl, full of love and trust for my father. But he destroyed everything. What I'm about to tell you is a painful story, a truth I've kept hidden for far too long. It's a story of a father, a daughter, an unspeakable secret, and the terrifying consequences it left behind. How far can the betrayal of someone who's supposed to protect us go? What would you do if the one you trusted most became your worst nightmare? Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear will shake you to your core. My name is Ina, and I'm 17. Until that night, I believed I had a normal family, a normal life. But a monster lived under my roof, and I never saw it coming. My mother had to leave for a few days due to a family emergency, an unexpected trip. "I'll be back soon, sweetie. Take care of yourself," she said, kissing me before getting into the taxi. My father stood behind her, smiling as always. A man I admired. Little did I know he was already plotting his betrayal. The first night without my mother seemed normal. I went to bed tired after my classes. But around midnight, I heard my bedroom door slowly opening. At first, I didn't react. Maybe it was just a check-in. But the footsteps didn't stop. Someone was coming into my room. I turned around and saw my father. He stood there in the shadows, his gaze fixed on me. Why was he here at this hour? My heart began to pound harder. Something was wrong. I remained frozen. My father was in my room in the middle of the night. His gaze was different, heavy, almost dark. My heart was beating so hard I felt like it would explode in my chest. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I whispered, my throat tight. He didn't answer right away. He simply closed the door behind him and slowly approached. My whole body tensed. There was something unnatural about his demeanor. "It's cold tonight, isn't it?" he said in a calm, almost gentle voice. I nodded mechanically. Yes, it was cold, but not cold enough for him to slip into my bed. Yet, that's what he did. He lay down next to me. I felt his breath on my neck. Every fiber of my being screamed that something was wrong. I wanted to get up, to run, but my limbs refused to move. "Everything's all right, sweetie," he murmured. His arms encircled me. I was no longer a daughter in her father's arms. I was prey. I wanted to speak, to protest, but my throat was dry. Why was he doing this? Why now? Then his hand landed on me. An icy shiver ran through my entire body. I closed my eyes tightly, praying it was a nightmare. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real. I held my breath. What would happen if I moved? I didn't sleep that night. I remained frozen, paralyzed by fear. I could still feel his breath, his weight, his oppressive presence. But I didn't scream. I didn't move. I stayed there trapped in my own body. At some point, he got up as if nothing had happened. He left my room without a word, closing the door behind him. I stayed there curled up, my heart in pieces. As soon as the sun peeked through my window, I jumped out of bed. I wanted to wash myself, to erase what I felt on my skin, but nothing could remove the stain. I locked myself in the bathroom, the scalding water running over me, but I still felt so dirty. Then came that terrifying moment. I came out of the bathroom, trembling, hoping to avoid him. But he was there in the living room, sitting as if nothing had happened, drinking his coffee. "Sleep well, sweetie?" he asked in a calm voice. I felt nauseous. I wanted to scream, to yell at him that I knew what he had done. But my voice remained stuck in my throat. Why was he acting like everything was normal? I lowered my eyes and went to sit far away from him. I couldn't breathe. All day he looked at me as if nothing had happened, and I was there, trapped by a secret I never wanted to carry. The days following that night were a silent hell. I couldn't look him in the eye anymore. Every time he passed near me, I felt a shiver run through my body. I was afraid. My mother called every night. I wanted to talk to her, to tell her everything. But how? How could I destroy a family with a single sentence? "Everything okay, sweetie?" she always asked. "Yes, Mom. Everything's fine." A lie. Nothing was fine. The nights were the worst. I didn't sleep anymore. I left the light on. I barricaded my door with a chair. I lived in terror. But one night as I lay in bed, I heard my doorknob jiggle. My heart almost stopped. Not again. I gripped my blankets, trembling. He was there on the other side. He was trying to open it. "Ina?" he whispered softly. My blood ran cold. I didn't answer. I wanted him to think I was asleep. He pushed a little harder. The chair against the door held. He realized I had blocked it. There was a long silence. Then I heard his footsteps fade away. I cried all night. I knew he would try again. I had to do something. That night, I understood he wouldn't stop. If he had tried to open my door once, he would try again. And if one day he succeeded, I had to run. The next morning, I got up with a weight on my chest but a firm decision in my mind. I couldn't live like this anymore. I went to see my best friend, Aisha. She immediately saw that something was wrong. "Ina, what's going on?" I wanted to speak, but no words came out. My throat was tied. If I told her, she would judge me. She wouldn't believe me. My hands trembled. I cried uncontrollably. Aisha took me in her arms. Her embrace broke me. "Please tell me what's wrong." I took a deep breath and let it all out. The words came out like a torrent. I told her everything. That night, his gestures, his frightening presence, his attempts, the monster he really was. When I finished, Aisha was in tears. "You have to tell your mother." "No, it's impossible. She'll never believe me." "And if you don't tell her, he'll do it again, Ina." Her gaze was filled with sadness, but also determination. She was right. I had to speak. All day, I paced around, my heart on the verge of exploding. How was I going to tell my mother? How could I announce to her that the man she loved, the man she believed to be an exemplary father, was a monster? That evening, I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking. "Hello, Mom?" "Yes, sweetie." "Are you okay?" "No, Mom, I'm not okay." "Mom, I need to talk to you. It's important." My voice trembled. She sensed it right away. "What is it, Ina?" "You're scaring me." I closed my eyes. It was time. "It's Dad." There was silence. A long silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end. "What did he do?" I told her everything. Every detail. The more I spoke, the faster her breathing became. She was in shock. I heard her sobbing softly. "Tell me it's not true, Ina." "Mom, I swear it's true." She burst into sobs. Then nothing. Dead silence. "I'm coming home immediately." She hung up. My heart was racing. What was she going to do? The next morning she was there. As soon as she crossed the threshold, she hugged me so tightly that I burst into tears. Then her gaze changed. She turned to him. My father. And that's when everything exploded. My mother stood up straight. Her eyes filled with a rage I had never seen before. She looked him straight in the eyes. This man she had loved, whom she had trusted. "Tell me it's not true." Her scream echoed throughout the house. My father remained frozen for a fraction of a second. I saw the panic in his eyes. But quickly, he regained his mask. that cold, manipulative face. "You're going to believe this. Our daughter is having an adolescent crisis. She's making up stories." I felt my heart break once again. How dare he? My mother clenched her fists. "Look me in the eyes and dare to tell me it's false." Silence. His face hardened. He knew. He knew he was trapped. "You're going to destroy our family for a lie?" he attempted. My mother screamed, tears streaming down her face. "You're the one who destroyed our family, not her." My father tried to approach her, but she pushed him away violently. "Don't touch me." Then she grabbed her phone. I understood at that moment that it was over. "I'm calling the police." My father paled. He stepped back. Then, without a word, he grabbed his things and left. When the door closed behind him, I collapsed in tears in my mother's arms. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want to hurt you." She held me close. "No, sweetie. I'm the one who's sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you." And at that moment, I understood that I was no longer alone. I was hurt, broken, but I was finally free. The days following my father's departure were a mix of relief and pain. The house was quieter, but the memories still screamed in my head. Each room reminded me of what I had experienced. Each night was a battle against my nightmares. My mother tried to stay strong, but I could see that she was broken. Sometimes I heard her crying at night, stifling her sobs in the pillow. She felt guilty. As for me, I felt empty. I had thought that by throwing him out, everything would be better. But the weight of what he had done to me was still there, clinging to me like a shadow. One day, as I was locked in my room, my mother came in softly. "Sweetie, we need to talk." I lowered my eyes. "I'm going to take you to see someone. Someone who can help you heal." I knew what she meant. A psychologist. Deep down, I didn't want to. I just wanted to forget. But could I really forget alone? I nodded. "Okay, Mom." It was perhaps the first step towards reconstruction. The first session was difficult. Sitting in that armchair facing a woman with gentle eyes, I felt vulnerable, exposed. "You don't have to talk right away, Ina. Take your time." I looked down at my trembling hands. Take my time? I wasn't even sure I wanted to talk. The words burned on my lips, but letting them out was giving them reality. For a long time, I played with the edge of my sleeve, my thoughts swirling in my mind. Then, like a breach in a dam, everything opened up. The memories, the emotions, the repressed pain, it all came out at once. I talked about the fear that paralyzed me, the nights I woke up startled, sweating, with the feeling that he was still there. I talked about this feeling of filth that clung to my skin, the gaze of others that weighed on me, the shame that I didn't know how to erase. I cried without realizing it, and she was there, sitting across from me, listening without interrupting, without judging. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said softly, "You are incredibly brave, Ina. You have survived, and now you are rebuilding yourself." The days passed, the sessions continued. It wasn't easy. Some days I left exhausted, emptied, with the feeling of having stirred up the mud at the bottom of my heart. But each session was a step towards healing. My mother often accompanied me. Sometimes she stayed in the waiting room. Sometimes she participated in the sessions. She too needed help. One evening, after a particularly intense session, she hugged me as we drove home. "I'm so proud of you, sweetie." I burst into tears in her arms. Little by little, I started to breathe again. I started to go out, to see a few friends, to laugh timidly, awkwardly. I understood that the pain would never go away completely, but it shouldn't define me. One morning, looking at myself in the mirror, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Me. Not the victim, not the broken girl. Me, Ina. I was still there, and I had survived. This story is coming to an end, but my fight continues. If you are going through a similar ordeal, know that there is always a path to the light. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be helped. You deserve to live again. If this story has touched you, help me break the silence. Leave a like, comment with your feelings, and above all, subscribe for more impactful stories. Together, we will never let anyone suffer in silence again.